Why do we sit here being silent, watching our leaders turn into tyrants? Have they forgotten which side they're fighting for? Checks and balances set aside and rule of laws, youth and ours, and Constitution openly ignored. Man, I'm not okay. Think we are being played. Is it time for right and left to join a greater cause? Man, I'm not okay. The rich claim to be victimized just to attack the marginalized. Is 1% really worth more than all the sick and poor? Always preaching about fellowship while planning their dictatorship. Now we've seen how all of this plays out before. Man, I'm not okay. Think we are being played. Time for you and I to join our country's call. Man, I'm not okay. Ever wonder all the mystery? Why they whitewash our history? Keep dividing is their plan. All in all, such a scam. Algorithm very sly, only used to spread the lies. Politicians know well, hate is simple to upsell. Man, I'm not okay. Think we are being played. Time for you and I to join our country's call.
We are not okay. America is not okay, and we all know that. Former Congressman Joe Walsh, this is The Social Contract with Joe Walsh. Let's figure out how to get okay together. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Punch the red hearts. My friend Madrid and I are going to have a good, informative, interesting conversation. So grab your cup of coffee, grab your tea. I've got vitamin water. No tequila yet, brother Madrid.
Not yet, but soon. We need to talk about all that too, because I'm working on this book on tequila, I think, as you know.
Oh my God, I can't wait. When are you projected to be done with that?
Probably a year and a half is the goal.
So cool. So
yeah,
cool.
but I've been working on it for over 2 years now.
Yeah.
It's a long, but it's a historical fiction novel on the tequila families that created of the tequila empire down in Jalisco, which we got to get down to some point.
We got to. And by the way, Michael, that book comes out. That's a freaking movie. I smell a screenplay somewhere there. That's a great story. That's a streaming series.
That's the goal. Yeah. It's a 200-year saga of the rivalries between the Cuervos and the Salsas. They were real families. These were real people. And there's romance and revolution and backstabbing and politics and all that stuff.
My guest is Mike Madrid. There he is. Come on in as you come in. Punch those red hearts. Make sure you can hear us both. By the way, it's been too long. There are a few things I love to do in my life, but one is to talk to you, butthead, every couple months. So thank you for prompting me, because you and I got to be more regular. Mike Madrid is longtime political strategist, thinker, writer. He is, as I've said to anybody who will listen, one of the smartest fucking political brains in this country.
You're too kind.
Let me say one more thing. Before I pick that brain, Michael, let me say a couple other things. Everybody and their mother has a podcast. Everybody and their mother's on Substack. Everybody and their mother is a pundit, blah, 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 throwing out a bunch of stuff, some good, some bad, some whatever. There's a handful of folk who, when they put something out, explaining what's going on politically in this country, you got to listen to. And everybody coming in, Mike Madrid is one of those. Make sure you follow him and subscribe to him on Substack. That's a fucking order from me. In fact, if you're a paid subscriber to me, unpay and put that toward Madrid. They won't,
thanks.
Michael. They'll do both.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. That's very, very generous. Very kind of you.
I mean it.
I missed our meetings. You energized me. You kind of you keep giving me fuel to keep going forward.
Well, okay, jerk. You do the same to me. I may be much more demonstrative in how I do it, but you, and we've had this conversation a number of times. Are you bearish or bullish on the American experiment? You're more hopeful and optimistic than I am. You give me heart. So thank you for that. I want to start with something either you wrote on your Substack or you said in an interview on somebody's podcast, but it goes something like being anti-GOP isn't good enough to get Latino votes.
Yeah.
Am I summarizing that right? Explain.
Yeah.
And you're talking to Democrats, right?
Yeah, and I'm, my audiences now are obviously, as are yours, probably a lot more Democratic leaning, and I've got the great fortune and kindness. The Senate Democratic Caucus in California here has asked me to speak to them next week.
Which, fantastic!
Yeah, which is they don't it's a very strong sign that they're kind of listening to kind of how they can do better. Doesn't mean they're going to take my advice, but they're going to listen.
Yeah.
And I say that because I am doing a lot more of that around the country and visiting with Democrats. And the argument really that I'm making, that I'm postulating is...
Yeah, what are you telling them, Michael? What are you telling them?
Look, we all understand the necessity of fighting at this moment. And that's why I love your passion. You remind me, there's still a fight going on, and it's a very serious one. But there also has to be some thought about what comes next. And this is significant, Joe, because we are now starting to hear, even on the Republican side, people talking about the post-Trump world. There's, and I'm not saying we're there yet, but there is a growing thought process that there's going to be a world after this. And what does that mean? And what does it look like? That's very healthy, because I think at some point, as that rises, as he gets more erratic, as he becomes more unpopular, which he will, when the Democrats take over after the midterms, the sense of the post-Trump world is going to, I think, become the dominant thought. And what's very important, I think, for policymakers and elected officials and pundits and others to be thinking about is, what does that world look like? We can't go back to the past. We know that by now. By the way, Joe, this war's been going on for 10 years. Trump came onto the scene in 2015, 2016. That's a decade of our lives of just this energy suck that we could have been doing things to help people and feed kids and become a better, stronger nation. What we've been doing is fighting, hand-to-hand combat for a decade.
Yeah.
And that does create a virtue of people who will win, and we will win, that are able to say, this is what that struggle was about. Character is built through struggle.
Yeah.
And so we're building that, but we have to reimagine and stop saying that sort of the middle class and Latinos and young people were just too ill-informed to know what they were doing. We have to start saying, maybe they're saying something that we need to listen to, and not justify it or rationalize voting for Donald Trump, but providing a better alternative, because a lot of these institutions don't work. Joe, they don't work.
Yeah.
They're failing people.
Yeah.
And that's not the Mike Madrids of the world saying that, although I am. That's the Ezra Kleins of the world writing about, the progressives are now finally realizing, well, maybe there is something to this. Maybe this doesn't work. And that doesn't mean it's a complete failure, but it does mean that the people that it's meant to serve and the people that need government most don't believe in it anymore.
Why? And then this is kind of from left field, but it'll get us where I want to go. And I've heard you say this before, but tell me concisely, why did in 2024 Trump do better with Latino voters, especially Latino men?
I've written extensively on this. Wrote a book about it, predicting it was going to happen months before it happened.
Yep.
I want people to understand that they weren't voting for Trump as much as they were leaving the Democratic Party and stop believing in the Democratic Party. And you can be angry about that or call Latinos racist or misogynist. I've heard a lot of that over the past year. But explain to me why Latinos have moved away from the Republican Party in 2025 in even bigger numbers than they shifted right. That's the lesson of this whole thing. What we're witnessing is a de-alignment, not a realignment. They're not shifting to become more Republicans. I was saying this, I think, on your show a couple times, right after the election. There's no data saying Latinos are becoming more Republican. There's a lot of data saying they're becoming less Democratic, and that's the real warning signal that Democrats have to understand. They've been given this massive second chance. And if they don't listen and learn the lessons of the 2018 midterms, they're doomed to repeat this cycle because Latinos will leave them again in a hot second.
So, Michael, are they like a lot of voters in America who kind of are disappointed in both parties, and every 2 or 4 years they put their head up and they vote for the party they hate the least?
Yeah, but yes. But here's where it gets really fascinating. If you look, the Latinos are the fastest part of this, what we call non-college educated blue collar worker. This is the working class every day getting faster and faster. If you compare Latino working class people to Black and white working class people, white and Black working class people are not moving very much at all. It doesn't matter how bad the economy gets under Biden-Harris, Black voters are going to stay there. It doesn't matter how bad the economy gets under Donald Trump, white voters are going to stay there. Latinos are rejecting both. They're right in the middle.
Why? What makes them different?
There's a few reasons. That's a great question. The main one I attribute it to is Latinos defy the Black and white construct that America is stuck in. See, and you're seeing this playing out in the Texas Senate race, where you're seeing like the Crockett-Allred argument, where if you're not white, then you're basically Black as a voter. You vote like a minority, and a lot of the criticism of the rightward shift of Latinos in 2024 came from Black politicians, Black consultants, and Black elite voices who were like, "You think you're white." And a Latino, by definition, is half white and half indigenous. That's who we are. Like, I'm sorry, you're not telling me anything we don't know. That's our experience. And the fact that we're behaving that way shouldn't come as a shock to anybody. Now, Black America sees this and says, that's inconceivable, because unless you're white, they're not gonna treat you the same. And that's not a surprise to us either, by the way. But and white America is like, you can come to America, but you've got to essentially be white, drop your culture, drop the hyphen, drop the ethnicity, and become white, which is sort of what the Irish, your people, and the Italians did, and Latinos are showing that assimilative tendency as well.
Fascinating.
So in many ways, we've seen this story play out before, but what we're doing is we're forcing a racial and a partisan construct on a people that really don't feel comfortable in either of those. We're the least racially polarized voters in America. In 2024, Joe, we voted 50-50.
It's like amazing.
That's not racially polarized. And we're certainly not that partisan. We're leaving the Republican and Democratic parties at rate faster than anybody else. So what we're seeing now is a snapshot of where our politics are going, because it's growing literally exponentially now. I was talking to a reporter yesterday saying, what are the top Latino races you're looking at to tell us what's happening? And 10 years ago, you asked me that, I would say there's 3, maybe 4 races you should look at. Now it's like 35 races, 36 you should look at. And so it's starting to really grow exponentially now. And the changes that I'm talking about are challenging Republican structures, Democratic structures, but they're also challenging Black and white structures. And this is all healthy. It's all moving towards a pluralistic society, but we have this need to look at and go, why are these Latinos acting so crazy? Why are they bouncing back and forth with these wild swings? And my response is, that's actually the way it's supposed to work in a democracy.
Oh, Mike, that's such a great fucking point. That's such a great point.
Yeah.
Broadly speaking, tell me if you buy my broad thesis.
Yeah.
Democrats are going to win the House this year.
Yeah.
Not because of anything about the Democratic Party. It's just because of Trump. Trump sucks. So they'll take back the House. maybe the Senate, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
Then if they want to win in 28, the White House and everything, if they want to win, then Democrats need to tell us who the fuck they are and what they want to do. I don't think they have to do that to win the House this year, but they're going to have to do that to win in 28. Broadly reflect on that.
I think you said it perfectly. I don't know if there's much more to say. And look, that's exactly right, Joe. And there's recent evidence to tell us this. Let me draw the picture of 2018. Because, everything that we're seeing, and sorry about my nerdiness, you know how I am. I'm looking through precincts in Texas for early voting data right now. That's what the glare of the screen is. And we can talk about that in just a second, too.
Yeah.
But 2018 gives us a very, very good look at what is likely to happen in November of this year. So let me take you back to 2018. 2018 is you did have ICE on the streets. Now, it wasn't militarized, it wasn't masked, jackbooted thugs, but people were being rounded up.
Yeah.
We had Fox News talking about the caravans. Remember? You started hearing about the Darien Gap and all these people, these hordes of unwashed masses coming every day to, rape your wife and steal your children and draw and quarter you, right? That's what brown people do.
Yeah.
And so that's, that all of that sentiment was there with one exception. The economy was really good in 2018. You had some of the best economic metrics for Black and brown and working class people in a very, very long time. But still, there was a 40-seat pickup by the Democrats.
Yeah.
And anti-Trump sentiment was raging, even though the economy was doing really well. We are now seeing the anti-immigrant, anti-Latino sentiment by a factor of 50, and the economy is bad and getting worse. So, and while we have redistricted since the 2018 cycle, this could be a very significant wave. And 2025 is showing us all of that data. So what does that mean? What that means is the fundamentals are so strong for the Democrats that they're not going to win by anything that they're doing. They're going to win despite themselves. The people are rejecting the Republicans. They're rebuking the Republicans. That's what all of this is about. But that's the opportunity that Democrats squandered in 2018, because in 2018, we had the highest midterm turnout in 150 years, right? Crazy, including with Latino voters, which is a historically low turnout voter. But the next three elections were historic rightward shift because the Democrats didn't have any policy solutions for these voters. That's what you're saying is exactly right. It's going to be a good year for Democrats, hopefully a really big year. We need it as a country. But the real danger is thinking that just being anti-Trump, which is fine for the moment, is going to be sufficient, because it's not. In fact, I think you're going to see a lot of changes in the leaders of the horse race of the Democratic primary for president right now. And I think the sentiment, the mood of the electorate, the mood of the Democratic electorate is going to change dramatically after this.
So being anti-Trump, Trump sucks, Trumpism is bad, all that ain't going to cut it after the midterms for 28.
Correct.
Okay.
It may help a little bit, but again, people are going to start equivocating and looking and seeing. And one of the reasons why I'm fascinated by the Texas race is you do have this candidate named James Tallarico. I don't know if whether you like him or not, he is doing something very unique that you need to pay attention to, which is he is extending literally an open hand, is what he's saying. He's not playing the smash mouth politics that Gavin Newsom is playing. And if he wins this primary, there's going to be two different visions and a very big argument in the Democratic Party about who we should be. And you're hearing Buttigieg, for example, and Bashir saying, we have to be more than just smash mouth politics. We have to be more than Trump. In many ways, this is kind of the redemption moment for Michelle Obama, saying, when they go low, we go high. And everyone's kind of derided her. We need to fight. Be this, that's true. There's for everything there's a season, Joe. For everything there's a season. And this may not be the fighting season after 26 as much as it is a defining moment for the Democratic Party, but also for this country. I think there's if the fever swamp of MAGAism breaks even a little bit, and the polling is showing, even with MAGA folks, it's starting to seep in there. There's got to be somebody that steps up and fills the void to say, we have to acknowledge our failures. We have to acknowledge this dark decade of the recent past, but we have to be focused on this as a people and as a party. And it can't be a rehash of last century's bullshit. And that's most of what the Democratic Party has been offering lately.
Okay, so that's a fascinating take. Look, I'm a very new Democrat, and in many ways, I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Democrat because I want to help them defeat my former party.
Yeah,
I just know if I'm a Democratic voter or heading into 28, damn it, I want a fighter. I want somebody who's going to tear down that fucking ballroom if it ever gets built. I mean, but that's me. Won't the mindset of the Democratic Party base be that or not? You're saying it may not be.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that we suddenly, everybody, and I say we because, I'm one of you. I'm an institutionalist. I care about the country more than I care about policy differences on tax policy. Like, there's a real fight in front of us. Let's put the fire out before we worry about what we're doing with the House. I'm not suggesting that there be a change necessarily in all of the tactics that we're using. But what I am going to say is this. I'm not going to disillusion myself into believing that if you fight fire with fire, everything burns down. There's a reason why you fight fire with water, okay? Because it limits the damage. And I'm not saying don't fight. I'm not saying don't fight.
I agree with all that, Michael. I'm just saying, do you agree with me that the party right now, it could change, is likely to nominate a fighter?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
The person with the biggest blowtorch is going to win right now. But what I am saying is after the midterms, I'm not convinced of that.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So like heading into 28, the nominee of the Democratic Party, I still anticipate is going to be a fighter, but you're saying maybe not.
I think they're going to be a fighter, but I think they're going to have to be more than just a meme fighter and an online fighter. I think the best way to fight is to actually have a vision and ideas. One of the reasons why the Democratic Party lost twice and almost 3 times to Donald Trump is because it doesn't have an identity other than being anti-Trump. And what I'm saying is that's got to stop. Otherwise, you end up with a J.D. Vance or a Marco Rubio. You will. Working class people will leave you in a hot second. They don't believe in the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party isn't offering something to believe in.
Bingo.
And it's got to be more than just Medicare for all and raising the minimum wage. I'm not saying those are bad ideas, but I'm saying that's not a party. It's not a vision.
Completely right, Mike Madrid. Go back to the Tallarico-Crockett primary in Texas. And I know you can't tell me who's going to win, blah, blah, blah. But analyze that race, and what do you think might happen?
So the polling is all over the place, which, for a nerd like me, that's great. It's like, let's really dig deep into this stuff. There have been polls that have showed Crockett way up. There's polls that show Tallarico way up. Texas, basically, the electorate is basically going to look like 40% white, 25, 28% black, and then about 25, 28, 30% Latino. What we're seeing is really high turnout on the Democratic side of the aisle. And in Texas, you don't register with a party. You request a ballot. So you show up at your school and they say, do you want to vote as a Republican or as a Democrat? The numbers for the Democratic side are exploding. And there is really, really high turnout in the Houston precincts, African-American precincts. The first day was very low. The last few days have just exploded, which is a very good sign for Crockett. But we're also seeing that same explosion with everybody else. And so what that means is, I believe, and I may fly down the weekend before election. I'm just so fascinated by this. Is, white voters, white Democrats, I think will largely consolidate behind Tallarico. Black voters will largely consolidate behind Crockett. That leaves Latinos, that middle third. And how they break are going to determine who the winner of the primary will be. But it's more than just that. I believe, and some people are uncomfortable talking about these issues. I'm not. I'm very comfortable talking about them. When Crockett and Congressman Allred leaned into playing the race card to try to mobilize black voters, something shifted with Latino voters too. And we don't know exactly what that's going to be, but I think it's highly unlikely that Latinos will split 50-50. I think they're going to break 60-40, 65-35, one direction or the other. And either way they go, they will be castigated. If they break for Tallarico, Black leadership will say they're basically racist trying to be white, the way they did with Kamala.
Yeah.
If they break with towards Crockett, you will see the Democratic Party retrench back into this racial ethnic identity politics and start talking more about immigration and open borders and abolishing ICE in a way that could be very detrimental for them going to the 2028 election cycle. So that narrative coming out is going to be really, 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 really important for what the Democratic Party is going to become in this race. Of that, I'm convinced.
Is it oversimplifying things to say that this Crockett-Tallarico matchup is kind of the fighter versus, I don't know how you describe Tallarico, but Crockett is clearly a fighter?
More of a firebrand for sure.
Yeah.
And I that might be, I don't know, but I think there's a lot to I think that's a very fair question. It's one that I'm really looking at. I've talked to, like I said, there's a Wall Street Journal reporter and a CBS reporter who called yesterday doing these bios on both of these candidates as we head into the stretch here. And that's kind of where I'm forcing the question. What you just asked, Joe, is central to, I think, the party's direction. And you know, there will be people that will say it's other factors, but you can't deny that at this moment that Tallarico is bringing a very different tone than a Jasmine Crockett or a Gavin Newsom is. He's doing something very different. And if he wins and wins big, even in a place like Texas, it's going to set up what I think is healthy, which is a very big, robust debate in the Democratic Party about whether we just emulate Trumpism to beat it. And I'm saying this is a Lincoln Project guy. I'm not ashamed of getting in the gutter and being, smash mouth politics. You do what you got to do. You fight the enemy where they're at, not where you want them to be. If they're in the gutter, you put on the hip boots and you go in and you fight in the gutter. But what is happening, as I was saying, is there is a growing sentiment with this post-Trump era that we need to do something bigger and better, and we don't win by becoming the monster that we're fighting. And I don't judge anybody. Like I said, I was right there, at the tip of the spear doing the shit because the country needed it. And I don't regret that one bit. I would do it all over again 100 million times. But I also believe that for everything there is a season. And if we have to start building a people, a civic virtue, a country again, it has to have at least some different tone than what we are seeing with the people leading that fight.
Michael, to me, this is like the most important issue in front of us. And it's reminiscent of me with Lincoln in the Civil War. I got to defeat the Confederacy, then try to unite the Union. And I consider Trumpism, MAGA, to be a threat. And I'm of the mind that fucking threat needs to be put down. And then we're going to bring people together. And maybe it can be done at the same time, Michael. I'm not sure. I'm not smart enough. But I think that message, I think Democratic voters want to hear that message somehow.
You said something very insightful, and please don't undermine your obviously very sharp intelligence and reverence for history.
I ain't no Mike Madrid. Ain't no Mike Madrid.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. We don't need any more of those. But you brought up Lincoln.
Yeah.
Lincoln, this guy, what Lincoln says as we're seeing the end of the Civil War, he famously says, with malice towards none and charity towards all. He sets the predicate for what needs to come next.
As the war is ending.
As the war is ending. And that's what I'm saying is, I'm not saying the war is ending, but what I am saying is there are people now, even like the fashion industry is talking about the post-Trump era and how people are going to feel, sports, politics, fashion, culture is starting to move on in a way that a lot of the partisan warriors like you and me aren't ready to kind of go there yet. But if you're observing the culture, there's this shift saying, Trump fatigue syndrome is real. We're tired of the circus show. We're tired of the three-ring clowns and, buffoons running things. We still need a fight to get there. There's massive fights still ahead of us. But somewhere in the American imagination that is emanating, there is a post-Trump sentiment. And the question I think that is going to be before us after the midterms, will be this Lincolnian sense of with malice towards none and charity towards all. Now, there's a lot of historians that would say that was a mistake Lincoln made. We needed to really punish the Confederates. We really need to extract a price.
Yeah.
But Lincoln's to his credit, I like to think it's to his credit, is even when he began, even from the Cooper Union speech that launched the Republican Party as a national entity, even during Lincoln-Douglas debates, he was arguing first and foremost for union.
Yeah.
He wasn't arguing for abolition until the secession happened, and then he's like, there's nothing we can do. Now it's a fight about abolition. His whole living and dying project, was union above all else, is we need to keep an American union. And I'm not going to say that the next Democratic president needs to be Lincolnian that way, but kinda. And that doesn't mean that you just overlook and act like this didn't happen. We can't do that. That has to be a lesson of the Civil War.
Yes.
Is what allowed this toxic part of our body politic to re-emanate was 120-year festering of the lost cause of the South. Yeah. This mythology of who they were and they should have won and this is really who we are. That shit needs to be stamped out. And the only way that happens, by the way, Joe, not to get too far down the road, but is through justice. There has to, some of these people have to meet justice. Justice must be enacted. We must pursue it vigorously, or no one's going to believe in the next enterprise, the next American project, regardless. But I'm not saying Lincoln wasn't a fighter, right? The same way I won't say those who offer, who would say with malice towards none and charity towards all. I still think those are fighting words. It's just a different style of fighting.
But I think, Michael, it just goes to, I think a lot of it goes to, figuratively speaking, where are we in the war? Where are we in the war against Trumpism and MAGA? And I don't know that you and I agree on this. I think you're generally right that the general population is exhausted again with Trump and moving away. But my former party, I still think he owns that party, and I still think MAGA Trumpism is that party. And Trump will anoint his successor, and whether it's J.D. Vance or little Marco or whoever, they're going to have to be Trumpy if they want that nomination. I don't think that party's going to change for a long time. You?
I don't think it will ever change, Joe.
Thank you.
And I think there's a certain element where you and I went to conventions and we kind of ignored those people in the shadows. If we look back and reflect honestly, we realize that was always there.
Oh, yeah.
We always thought, it's just no one takes that shit seriously. And we didn't. You was marginalized, and there was the kooks and the polyester pants and the, bullets and bullion crowd. That has never left. That has been with us. That's what I was saying. Until you actually meet justice, M-E-T-E, justice.
Yeah.
After the Civil War, one of the failings of one of the real downsides, and there were a lot of Lincoln's assassination, was there is no justice. Andrew Johnson becomes president who has very strong Southern sympathies.
Yeah.
And Reconstruction, Sherman's march to the sea is the real damage, but we didn't hold a lot of the drivers, the donors, the plantation owners to account.
Yeah.
We never did. And so that culture festered.
Yeah.
And that's the same danger we face now. And so it will never go away. That is a part of the American DNA. That strand will never go away. What we're relearning at this moment, is we must be eternally vigilant in fighting it.
Mike Madrid, just quickly go back to Texas and make a case for both Crockett and Tallarico winning a general in Texas.
I appreciate the question. So I have been very, very critical of, Texas turning blue for a decade.
I know you have.
There's been this kind of pipe dream, and I'm like, guys, the demographics don't suggest that. I'm not quite saying that. Let me put it this way. I think the chances are much better now than they have been in a decade.
Okay.
And in the last couple of cycles, Texas has actually been moving away from the Democrats as Latinos have been shifting to the right. So there's a lot of demographic reasons we can get into, but I'll make the case. First of all, if Ken Paxton, this sort of kind of right-wing nut corrupt extremist, beats Cornyn, the sitting senator in the primary, the chances for Democratic pickup get
Michael, so do you agree if Cornyn's the GOP nominee, it's going to be a tough lift no matter who the Dem is?
It's very hard.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be tough anyway, but Paxton certainly, by measurable, consequential margin, makes this much more competitive for the Democrats.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge. If Cornyn wins, if the incumbent wins, it gets much harder for the Democrats. It's still Texas. Let's be honest. It's a tough row, but it's also if Paxton beats Cornyn, what that's a sign of is the base is going to keep going to the right, and then the question becomes who's the better position for Crockett and Tallarico, or Tallarico. And I don't think I'm saying anything out of school here, but I think Tallarico is far better positioned to win a primary or a general over Jasmine Crockett. Far better.
What I've heard Crockett's people say is that she could get the black vote in Texas that a whole bunch who generally don't vote. She could get people who typically don't vote in the general out. I understand Tallarico's case to be made. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Do you see anything to Crockett's case that she can energize blacks and other voters who typically don't vote?
I think that there's a very good chance. The question is math. The math doesn't math. There aren't enough of those voters, and there never have been. By the way, Joe, this is not a criticism of the left, because you and I heard this on the right. If you just go further right-wing crazy, you get more people inspired to go and show up and vote.
Yeah.
That has almost always been complete bullshit and mythology. One exception is Donald Trump. Donald Trump did do it. Yeah. The question is, if you've got somebody that crazy, that extreme, is that good for the party or the country? My answer is no. And I don't believe I'm a centrist because I don't believe there's a right left. So centrism means nothing to me. I'm just a political professional that looks at data, right? There's far more math in the middle in Texas than there is left-wing turnout. So it's Texas.
Yeah. No, you're right, Mike Madrid, and this is what I wrestle with because I'm kind of a weird guy politically. I've always been a populist. I was a Tea Party populist. Now I'm a fighting conservative Dem populist.
Yeah.
I think a populist needs to be the Dem nominee, but correct me if I'm right, the populist is more likely to come from the far left. I don't know of a lot of centrist populists. Maybe that's an oxymoron.
No, but that's a great question. Let me unpack that a little bit. Populism, by definition, is not right or left.
Yeah.
This idea that there's left-wing populism in Bernie Sanders and right-wing populism in Donald Trump is a complete misunderstanding of what populism is.
Agreed.
Those are not true. They are both anti-establishment.
Boom.
There's a reason why Donald Trump invites Zoran Mamdani to the Oval Office.
Yeah.
There's a reason why there's overlap amongst these constituencies, but they're not right or left. They're top down. They're establishment, anti-establishment, haves and have-nots. That's different. And that, I think, to me, explains to Joe Walsh perfectly. What you were saying is, this American experiment is not serving people, and your politics in the Republican Party were part of what the Tea Party was saying, is there's a constitutional argument.
Bingo.
You haven't changed. The party's changed.
Yeah.
What you're saying is, no, I'm willing to kick off all of my history, all of my party, all of my friends, all of my allies, donors, all of it, because I still believe in these constitutional principles. The Constitution still matters. That in this moment is an institutionalist.
And you're right.
Yeah, and so that's
You're right.
So the argument, like, people will say, well, the left needs to get these more populist ideas. I don't think that's the way to look at it at all. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that's the way Bernie Sanders looks at it. Bernie Sanders was not really a Democrat for most of his career. He was saying,
Exactly.
I'm not in this party. He was saying the system is rigged. He wasn't talking about America or capitalism exclusively. He was also talking about the Democratic Party because it's true.
Bingo.
And that's basically Donald Trump's message.
Yeah.
So look, the energy is on the anti-establishment wings of both parties. But I think properly understood, they're not on the right-left spectrum at all.
Is it harder then to find an anti-establishment centrist? It seems like...
Yeah. And in fact, you are unique because you are both an institutionalist and a populist. Yeah. But what I would argue is in a populist era, when populism is dominant, institutionalism becomes the populism. Because what you're arguing for the rules. You're like, no. Let's follow the Constitution when everyone else is like, nah. Do we really need it? Is it really working? And you're like, yes.
By the way, everybody, do you understand why the fuck I like to listen to this guy? Do you understand why the fuck I say you need to follow and subscribe to Mike Madrid on Substack? You are missing out, all of you, if you don't. Mike Madrid, one more question for you.
Yeah.
You always throw out nuggets in the stuff you write, and in what I hear you say that fascinate me. A nugget from maybe a week ago or the last few days, I don't know where you said it, but you said young Latino, or you insinuated that young Latino men are the last swing voter in America.
Yeah.
Explain.
So as I mentioned earlier, if you look at data from the last decade, the Trump era, we have become so partisanized and so calcified that we're not seeing any movement. And most political prognosticators, not necessarily the pundits, but people that actually look at the data in the campaigns, are saying, look, there's no more persuadable voters anymore. Yeah. It's all turnout. Look at the 2024 election, right? It all comes down to 10,000, 20,000 voters in these counties, in these states. We're not persuaded. We spend $1 billion on each side just to make consultants rich. Like, that money's not persuading anybody.
Amen.
It's all about anger and passion and turning out. Who's going to turn out to vote? So what you're seeing is there is one group. There's actually two. There's young voters and young Latinos, but the overlap is huge. Like, you can't talk about young voters without having a huge overlap with Latino voters, because demographically, that's who the young people in this country are. So that's just one qualifier. And that does open up a question is are they motivated more by age and generational cohorts, which I would argue they are, than by ethnicity? And I agree with that, incidentally.
And you'd argue more the former.
I would argue more the former, certainly, especially as Latinos are growing in second, third, fourth generation. They're not as strongly ethnically anchored as they were in the 80s and 90s. Sorry about all the academic nonsense.
No, don't. This is what we want from you.
What's happening is this de-alignment I keep talking about. Is they're very different than the soccer moms. Remember the suburban soccer mom? Everybody was freaked out, like, how do you get them? And both parties are like scrambling. Like, how do we appeal to their progressive cultural attitudes, but also their fiscal conservatism and their tough on crime sentiments? And we spend 25, 30 years struggling to solve their problems. But notice when it's young Latino men, nobody's trying to come up with solutions for that.
No.
The solution is more like, let's either ignore them or hunt them down. And so what that leaves is a growing cynicism and an even weaker attachment than already exists. And so, yes, what you have is this one group that has this massive delta, as we call it, this massive change in voting pattern, where black and white working class voters are barely moving at all. Latinos are swinging dramatically. And like I said at the intro, sorry about the long answer, but they're behaving the way the founders envisioned this would happen. If you've got a party in power that is ignoring you or threatening you, you would vote against them. Black voters don't do that. White voters don't do that. You have Latinos coming up the middle with a very different perspective on race, ethnicity, and partisanship. And that's why I called my book How Latinos Are Transforming Democracy, is both parties have to change, have to adjust when it gets so desperate that they've got no other choice. The question is, are we there yet? I don't think we're there, but we're really, really close.
Again, last time, that voice belongs to Mike Madrid, one of the smartest political minds and writers and observers and thinkers in this country. Do me a favor, guys. Follow Mike. Subscribe to Mike. Let's keep his voice out there in a big, big way. My brother!
Joe, love ya.
Thank you, man. Talk soon,
so
Michael.
good to be with you. We'll talk soon. All right, take care.
Ciao, ciao, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, follow, and share The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple, Spotify. Plus, don't forget to subscribe to The Social Contract on Substack. This has been The Social Contract with Joe Walsh.